Okay, let's look at the final one, which is division then. So this is slightly more complicated, but again, it's just a rule. If you know the rule, it's very easy to apply. We'll do this by a question again. So let's say we had e.g. 2/3 divided by 1/4. Right, now how do you divide fractions? Well, we'll do this in steps. So, step 1. You flip over the second fraction, or a more mathematical term is you take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Now reciprocal means you do 1 over. So 1 over 1/4, which is the same thing as 4/1, which is 4. So if you don't want to remember it that way, or you find that a little bit confusing, just think, if I flip over this fraction, turn it over on its head, what do I get? You get 4/1, which is 4, which is the same thing as what we just did here in the reciprocal bit. So that's step 1. So what do we have now? We have 2/3 divided by 4, or 4/1. So second step now. So step 2, replace the division sign by the times, or the multiplication sign. So we have 2/3 times 4, or let's say 4/1 here. And now we know how to multiply fractions. We just multiply the top and we multiply the bottom. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 3 times 1 is 3. So your answer is 8/3. And so that's all you do. So step 1, you take the reciprocal, or you flip over, you turn it on its head, the second fraction. And then step 2, instead of dividing the two fractions, you multiply them. And we know how to multiply. We just multiply the top, multiply the bottom, and you get your answer. If you need to simplify your answer, here we have 8/3. There's nothing that goes into both 8 and 3, so this is the most simple answer. We leave it as that. Right, so let's look at an exam question and see how this concept of fractions comes in, and how they try and make it a little bit more difficult. So if we go to these two questions here. Now this is, as I mentioned, this is a 2016 exam paper from Sevenoaks. So it's a real 11 plus exam paper, and we're going to have a look at how we answer this. Right, so we are told, number 6, Mr. Shah had 15.5 meters of wire. He cut off a piece of wire 2 3/4 meters long. How much wire did he have left? So what's he asking us? Well, the question is asking us, if we start off with 15.5, and we're cutting off, so we're taking away 2 1/3. So really, this question is asking us, okay, please subtract for me 2 1/3 away from 15.5. And they'll try to make it a little bit more difficult by giving you a mixed number. So what can we do first? Well, we know how to go from a mixed number to a top-heavy fraction. So let's do that. Well, 15 times 2 is 30, plus 1 is 31, so we've got 31 over the original denominator, which is 2, so 31/2, take away. 2 times 3 is 6, plus the numerator 1, which is 7, over the original denominator, which is 3. So 31/2 minus 7/3. Well, how do we do that? We know how to subtract fractions. We need a common denominator. So what do 2 and 3 both go into? Well, they both go into 6. 2 times 3 is 6. So if I multiply the bottom by 3 and to multiply the top by 3, what's 31 times 3? Well, it's 93. In the other fraction then, 3 times 1 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. So do the same thing at the top. 7 times 2 is 14. So what is 93 minus 14? Well, 93 minus 14 is 79 over, and remember we leave the common denominator as it is, so 79/6. Now, that's the answer, but there's one more thing I would do. Because the question gave us improper fractions, I would convert the answer back into an improper fraction. So what I mean by that is, how do I get from 79/6 back into an improper fraction? Well, we looked at it earlier. So how many 6's go into 79? Well, 6 10s are 60, 6 11s are 66, 6 12s are 72, 6 13s are 78. So we would have 13 remainder. 79 minus 78 is 1 over the original denominator, which is 6. So your answer is 13 and a sixth. Great, okay. So let's look at the last one then. So Dan has to walk 1 3/4 kilometers to school. How far has he walked when he is halfway? So what's that asking us? Essentially, that's asking us to calculate 1 3/4 divided by 2, isn't it? If it's asking us to work out how much he's walked halfway, it means find a half of 1 3/4, or do 1 3/4 divided by 2. Right, so how are we going to do this? Well, we know how to divide fractions. Again, first step, let's get this mixed number into a top-heavy fraction. So what's 1 times 4? It's 4, plus the 3 is 7. So we've got 7 over 4 divided by 2, or if I write that as 2 over 1, that's the same thing as 2. Now we had 2 steps to divide fractions, right? Step 1 was to flip over the second fraction on its head. So that becomes 1 over 2. And step 2 was to change the division sign to a multiplication sign. So that becomes times. So you've got 7 over 4 times 1 over 2. We know how to multiply fractions. We just multiply the top and we multiply the bottom. So 7 times 1 is 7. And 4 times 2 is 8. Now in this case, we don't have a top-heavy fraction, so we don't need to change this into a mixed number. So your answer then is 7 over 8. And that's the end of the lesson. Thank you for listening.